Hello, you are listening to Driving at Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT, the Heartland Signal and Alternative Talk, and 1150 KKNW in Seattle. Welcome, you folks from Seattle. You may have noticed I'm not Patti Vasquez. I am Joel Ostrow, political science professor at Benedictine University, and I am sitting in with Patti today. Really looking forward to the next couple hours. Have a lineup of guests that I'm really excited about. We have the Chicago's Deputy Mayor, Beatrice Ponce de Leon, in the first half hour. And then after that, we have a candidate for Congress from the 13th Congressional District in Illinois, Dylan Blaha. He's a reservist captain from Illinois National Guard. Following him, we have Chicago attorney Rachel Cohen, attorney and activist. And then we'll be finishing up with columnist, syndicated columnist Heidi Stevens. With the deputy mayor and Captain Blaha and with Rachel Cohen, I'm going to want to focus on on the response to the federal actions in the Chicago metro area regarding ICE. And I do want to note, for the last several weeks, have tried to reach somebody, representative from the Illinois State Police. We reached out to the governor's office and did not meet with a positive response from either of those. And I say that because I really want to express my gratitude to the mayor's office and to Deputy Mayor Ponce de Leon for joining us. So thank you very much for joining us. And good evening.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me. It sounds like you have a great lineup for the next couple hours.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I wanted to start off, and we don't have a lot of time, and I have a billion questions I would love to cover with you. But I think the first question that I am really interested in, and I don't think has been elaborated enough for the people. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what the relationship is between the mayor's office and the Chicago Police Department, and to the extent you know, the analogy would be the governor to the Illinois State Police. What are the lines of authority between the two? How independent are they of each other? Does the mayor give orders or instructions to Chicago police and the governor to the state police? Can you talk a little bit about what that relationship is?
I will do my best to clarify. I don't want to compare it to the state governor because I just don't understand. I'm not fully familiar with that line.
Okay.
But I will say that, the mayor appointed our superintendent, Snelling, and works in collaboration with superintendent. We also have a deputy mayor of community safety, Gary Gatewood, and he holds that relationship as well. There's certainly discussion, collaboration, and joint problem solving. At the end of the day, the superintendent does report to the mayor. But we also know that there are Chicago Police is a large institution, and there are many laws that govern how they operate, and so we work to have a good understanding of those and see how jointly we can support constitutional policing and support the vision of the mayor.
Well, thank you. That is helpful. So there is the Illinois Trust Act, and I'm sure anyone who has followed what's been going on in the Chicago metro area has heard about the Trust Act, right? To read a portion of it, it says, and I quote, a law enforcement agency or official may not participate, support, or assist in any capacity with an immigration agent's enforcement operations. That's really a key line from the law. And I don't have to, and apologies, it was just handed to me. You're Chicago's first ever deputy mayor of immigrant, migrant, and refugee rights. I apologize for not knowing that in advance.
That's okay.
But maybe you can comment, like, when I have seen videos, like clips from Broadview, for example, and I know that's not necessarily the Chicago Police Department, the question that, excuse me, has popped into my head is, given what the Trust Act says, when I see law enforcement facing demonstrators who are there peacefully demonstrating with their weapons sort of facing those demonstrators, my question is, why aren't they facing the other way? Why aren't they protecting those civilians who are peacefully protesting and protecting them from the aggressive actions of the federal agents? And I know you are not one of those law enforcement officials out there, but I'm wondering sort of how you in the mayor's office perceive that, and what kinds of communications have happened around that you're able to share.
Yeah. The Illinois Trust Act, and then for Chicago, the Welcoming City Ordinance, what they state and guarantee is that our local law enforcement, whether it's at the city level, at the state level, or the county level, that local law enforcement will not assist ICE. We will never be an extension of ICE or CBP and, do the work that they have federal authority and resources to do. There's plenty for our local law enforcement to help keep our community safe in Chicago, but it also means that they can't interfere. So, and understanding what that looks like in terms of not interfering, there's some interpretation that folks have, and some people see it in more clear ways, than others. What it has meant for Chicago police is we have a very direct line of understanding with Superintendent Snelling and his leadership team about Chicago police not interfering and never becoming either assisting or interfering when ICE or CBP is on the ground. They do have a responsibility to protect Chicagoans, and we have seen that come into play when tear gas has been, when CBP has released tear gas, or in situations where there might have been a car crash and there are other dangers on the ground. CPD has been out there to help support, and then certainly in terms of upholding people's right to protest. We already have a commitment to constitutional policing, but the mayor did also sign an executive order that made even stronger our commitment to make sure that CPD is supporting people's First Amendment right to protest and to film, for example, what's going on in a safe and peaceful way. In terms of Broadview, I don't want to comment on that because the state police is in no way under our jurisdiction, but I can guarantee that the city and the mayor are doing the best that we can with our local law enforcement here to uphold those Welcoming City Ordinance and the Illinois Trust Act.
Yeah, and I can only imagine there must be some frustration in the mayor's office. I know one pretty well-known political consultant in the area just today was asking the question on social media, how do we know that these are actually trained, approved, licensed federal agents? And I've been wondering this, and many have been wondering this, really since the beginning of this operation, if they're masked, if they don't have ID, if they don't have warrants. To me and to any regular civilian, it looks like most of what's happening is straight up kidnapping, smashing car doors and pulling people out. They're putting them in shackles and taking them away, even if it's for a short period of time, right? How is that legal? And is there a degree of frustration in the mayor's office that police aren't arresting the kidnappers, to put it, in crass terms?
Yes, I share that frustration, and certainly, everyone has been questioning that, because you do see pretty much armed, unidentified people with guns and other weapons terrorizing our community. They're picking people up, they're throwing them in vans or SUVs. They're not identifying themselves, they're not showing warrants. They are really operating outside of the law and violating many rights. And thankfully, we do have from judges that are beginning to see that and trying to put temporary restraining orders and force them to use body cameras and to identify themselves. And right now, I think fighting these atrocities in the courts is the strongest way to be able to push back. Because of the federal laws and jurisdiction that the feds have over their agents, it is difficult and at this point not possible for CPD to arrest or to interfere in certain ways. I also have always said that, never say never, because circumstances are changing, and we might see a day when this might be different. And we know that both states and other cities, as well as our own legal teams, we've looked at these possibilities of how else to hold federal agents accountable. But at the moment, we're unable to really interfere in a way that would enable us to arrest or cite any of these agents. And there are, though, cases where people genuinely afraid of who these folks might be and have called for help to report a kidnapping or report a trespasser.
Yeah.
And, people have a right to do that if that is what they feel in that moment that they need that support.
Well, that's the thing, right? So you mentioned at the beginning the Trust Act also prevents local authorities from interfering with federal agents. But if the individuals are not clearly and reliably identified as such agents, isn't it then incumbent upon law enforcement, city, local, or state, actually it should be and state, to take action, to intervene? Because why would we trust that those are in fact agents if they are not identifying? And you're right, like Judge Ellis's order about trying to restrict the use of chemical agents and the other orders coming from that court. I think the courts, at least her court, has been quite forceful. Clearly the governor's public statements have been admirable, as have Mayor Johnson's and everything that you have said on air so far. And trust, democracy, so much depends on trust. And if law enforcement is not, who is going to enforce those court orders? It is ultimately law enforcement. And if law enforcement is not enforcing the law, I would submit that we are in pretty grave danger. Are those the kinds of discussions that are happening in the mayor's office between the mayor and the governor? Because it doesn't always look like it's so coordinated.
Those discussions certainly are happening in a variety of circles, and I guess the only thing I could say is that there are no easy answers.
No.
If we were to have CPD or the sheriff's office or the state police, trying to detain any of these federal agents, imagine the standoff that would cause and the additional kind of harm to public safety. Again, I don't have all the answers. These are very complicated questions. There are certainly people looking into the legalities of what else might be possible. I can say that for now, Chicago is leading in the country in the way that we have come to be united, city, state, county, Chicagoans, churches, faith communities, immigrant rights activists. Everyday Chicago residents are pretty well all unified against the militarization that we're seeing in our city, against the violations to civil rights and constitutional rights, against these kidnappings. And all eyes are on our city. And I will say that I am proud to be here in this moment because we are standing up to these attacks. And the answers are not easy. The strategy is changing, but I think at least having come out very clearly against what is happening, and then using the powers we do have, executive orders, litigation, possibly new legislation, building community, public education. We launched the Know Your Rights campaign in January, and we're able to put that information on all the billboards and screens in our CTA system.
Yeah.
First time that a city did that. And so, and from there we've built out our Protecting Chicago initiative.
Yeah.
We are trying to protect our parking lots and our city-owned properties. So doing what we can in this moment and keeping other possibilities open, and definitely open to ideas and dialogue from others as well.
I can only imagine how crazy it must be. Listen, we need to take a short break. Can you stay on for
Sure.
one more segment? Terrific. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
You know that you can listen to Chicago's Progressive Talk on WCPT AM 820. Stream us live at WCPT820.com and on the TuneIn Radio app. Or you can ask Alexa, Siri, or Google to play WCPT from TuneIn. But now you have another option. We're simulcasting our programming overnights. 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. on WSBC AM 1240 for a clearer reception in and around the city. Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. And now overnights on WSBC 1240 AM, where facts matter.
Siemens Medical Solutions USA, Inc. seeks a financial analyst professional in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Analyze and monitor key performance indicators in business performance and create reports. Requires bachelor's in business administration, finance, accounting, economics, or related, plus 3 years related experience. Hybrid work permitted. $115,000 to $153,200 per year. Apply. Go to careers.siemens-healthinears.com and search R-24701.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Union Strong Chicago continues to lead the way with progressive values and in preserving democracy. Your support of the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC efforts in Wisconsin and beyond strengthens the fight against MAGA Republicans. You can now purchase progressive beers like Labor Lager, Love Wins Fruited Sour, and the Resistance IPA in Chicago at Rogers Park Provisions, Diversity Beer, Wine, and Spirits in Lakeview, Park West Liquor, Wine, and Beer in Lincoln Park, Logan Square Liquors, and Tip Top Food and Liquors in Westtown. Visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com for all their Chicagoland locations. As always, no matter how bad our sports teams are, please drink responsibly.
Welcome back to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
That was Patti Vasquez. You heard This Is Not. I'm Joel Ostrow, sitting in, keeping Patti's chair warm for her. Thank you, Patti. You're listening to WCPT, the Heartland Signal, and Heartland Signal and Alternative Talk, and 1150 KKNW in Seattle is with us. We are sponsored by Minocqua Brewing, as you heard, Source Solar, Kids Above All, Pride Coffee Roasters at pridecoffeeroasters.com. Thank you, sponsors. We're here with Chicago's Deputy Mayor of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights, Beatrice Ponce de Leon, and we were just talking about the relations between the political offices of the mayor and the police and how they interface. And Deputy Mayor, you were talking about the variety of activities coming from city government to make the public aware. And you express the pride and the unity of the people of Chicago in the broader metro area in opposing and resisting these federal actions, the militarization of the city. And I'll be talking in the next half hour with Dylan Blaha, who has much to say about the role of the military. But recently, the mayor, in a speech, called for a general strike. Way back in February, Governor Pritzker, in a speech in New Hampshire, called for a mass movement of resistance at the time when there was the slashing of federal government and federal services led by Elon Musk. I've been calling for this. Anyone who's listened to me on Jones' show or on Patti's has heard me articulate that a mass action and sustained action is really the only thing that can end this, that I see, based on my experience watching failed democracies, my expertise being Russia. And as you were talking and thinking about if I were a cop and there were 40 people on the street demonstrating against this action by these masked, unidentified agents, and how I might respond if instead of 40, there were 40,000. I understand, and that is why I echo, and I'm glad that Mayor Johnson did mention a general strike. He's the first elected official that I've heard use that term. I know that's not necessarily your direct purview, but I wonder if what are his thoughts? What are your collective thoughts on how to get a mass action like that to happen in Chicago, rather than, as I put it, on a sunny Saturday afternoon every couple months? And I say that, I don't mean to be derogatory. The turnout for the No Kings demonstrations has been impressive, but the impact would be much greater if it were a Monday at 9 and many more, and in a sustained way. What are the thoughts from our elected officials on how to make that happen? How do you inspire that? How do you get that to happen?
Well, I mean, I think the first is to say it out loud, right?
Yeah.
And our mayor has been leading very clearly in this moment. He was the first mayor, and really, I mean, I think the first kind of senior elected person to speak so publicly against so many of these attacks from the Trump administration, because they definitely go beyond immigrants, right, to all of us, civil rights, constitutional rights, human rights. And so by raising journalists, by raising the idea of a general strike, it already has sparked some momentum and conversation. But obviously, a general strike takes a lot of organizing and a variety of groups, and is a longer-term solution. I think that it is something that, as you just said, it eventually will likely come together at some point. We may be a part of that process, but there are certainly groups like Indivisible Chicago, like the labor, a variety of labor unions, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. There are many organized groups. Chicago's an organizing town, and if momentum and real strategy around a general strike takes off, I can see that happening here in Chicago, and us being kind of at the epicenter of it.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
it was definitely a well-received idea.
Yeah, certainly well received by me. Like I say, I've been saying, like, if you imagine if the courts rule that these actions are illegal, you can still see this regime trying to send in guard or military, and the fragmentation of what you describe of these organizations is part of the problem in getting a mass turnout. I've been arguing that without a coordinated call by our leaders, and not just the governor and the mayor, but even former presidents and high-level officials, naming a date and time in like 2-paragraph statement, this is why and this is what needs to happen. To me, that's the way. That's the kind of the coordination of the leadership that can then get the organizations to say, okay, we've got our marching orders, as it were. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's good organizing. And I think the No Kings is a demonstration of that. The fact that there were hundreds or maybe even thousands of No Kings protests all on the same day, and it was millions of people. There is a base of people that are ready to take further action. We have Bernie Sanders, who has consistently been calling for the type of changes and reformed and taking down the oligarchy, and might be also ready to help spearhead a general strike. So I can't make commitments for the mayor or
I know.
for the administration at this time, but I do know that he didn't say that lightly, and that it is something that has inspired some ongoing discussion, and maybe there's work underway to make it real. It
is a courageous call. He is the only elected official I know who have used those terms, and you're absolutely right. Like, the first step is to actually say it, and I hope that you and the mayor and others can get together with other elected officials, both here in Illinois and hopefully around the country, to say it together. Deputy Mayor Ponce de Leon, thank you so much. This is not an easy conversation. There are no easy answers. And I, again, really appreciate your coming on and taking the time. And I wish some of the others, I really would like for transparency and for the people's trust for the state police to have their press people answer questions from journalists because the opacity undermines trust, and that undermines our democracy. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And if I can just leave the listeners with our website at chicago.gov/protect is where you can see the executive orders, the litigation, just a wide range of resources and actions that we've taken to fight back against this militarization. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Mainly cloudy skies tonight, a low temperature of 41 degrees and light northwest winds. Friday, showers developing in the afternoon, otherwise sunny with a high temperature of 54, northwest winds at 5 to 15. Saturday, chance of showers with a high temperature around 50. Sunday, sunny with a high of 54. Monday, sunshine with a high temperature of 58 degrees. Tuesday, sunny with a high of 59. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 55.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Rich, I guess I'll let you kind of introduce Jason.
Jason was at January 6th. He was charged and imprisoned for his actions, but he rejected the president's pardon.
Following Trump, it was almost like being I think Raiders fans are probably the closest thing to Trump fans. If you're looking for a football fan, it's the Raiders, because they're the ones who wear the makeup and they're crazy.
Richard Chew, weekday mornings at 6 on WCPT 820.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's Progressive Talk from TuneIn.
No detours, no distractions, just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
You are listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am Joel Ostrow. I'm sitting in here at WCPT, Heartland Signal, and we are also broadcasting on 1150 KKNW in Seattle. I didn't really have a chance to introduce myself at the beginning of the show because I didn't want to cut into the time with the deputy mayor. I am Joel Ostrow. I'm a political science professor at Benedictine University, frequent guest here on WCPT with Joan Esposito and with Patti Vasquez. My expertise, those of you who tune in probably are most familiar hearing me talk about the war in Ukraine and about things relating to Russia, U.S.-Russia relations, but mostly over the last few years relating to details about the war in Ukraine. So you might be wondering why I'm talking about ICE, why I'm talking about the status of our democracy. Being an expert in Russian politics, I became expert in how a country goes from being a non-democracy to a democracy, and then, quite sadly and tragically, how democracy fails. And so over the last several years, I've also been commenting on problems with our own democracy, things that are troubling, and also things that look familiar. And there is so much that is happening in the United States today that is familiar. You know, I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago, and remembering back, it was some faculty colleagues, I believe. And if you think back to 2017, right after Trump was inaugurated the first time, it became commonplace to try to remind each other, take note of this transgression of the norm, take note of what's happening, and what is being undermined of our traditions, what is being undermined of our norms, so that we remember and we notice how much change is happening. And I feel like we're almost become desensitized or perhaps despondent about the possibilities of democracy in our country now. And as the deputy mayor put it, the militarization of our cities, disappearances of people in violation of constitutional requirements, legal norms, and our traditions, in the end undermines trust. It undermines the trust of the people in our institutions, that they will protect us, particularly when there are court orders that do not get enforced, or when there are court rulings, court with a capital C, that are so clearly contradictory to the traditions of our political system and the requirements of our Constitution. For example, as Joan put it with her last guest in the last hour, the court ruling that the president, in fact, can be above the law and above prosecution, that is in direct contradiction to the rule of law of a democracy that states that nobody's above the law. So all of this together is troubling, and it becomes difficult to put together, because every day there seems to be another outrage, another transgression, and media coverage focuses on each one sequentially without necessarily putting together how it all ties together. I think we can look at the actions of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol as tying all of that together. We have unidentified agents, masked agents, acting without court orders, snatching people who are just going about their daily lives. Sometimes they are undocumented immigrants, sometimes they are United States citizens, but the treatment is the same at the beginning. They're put in shackles, and it is important to note, even if someone is has overstayed their visa or is in violation otherwise of our immigration laws, those are civil offenses. They're not criminal offenses. They don't warrant being put into zip ties or handcuffs and being disappeared for days at a time. When a court orders that this stop, but it doesn't stop, that erodes our trust in the courts, but it also erodes our trust in law enforcement, because if the courts rule on the law, but the enforcers of the law aren't enforcing it, that breaks down trust. And that is the goal always of authoritarians. If you want to call them fascists, I do call this regime fascist, because they are based on hate and racism and using violence, not only in Chicago but around the country. And it is true that the resistance in Chicago, the opposition, is admirable. I live in Oak Park. Just a couple days ago at 7:30 in the morning, I snatched somebody off the street 2 blocks, literally 2 blocks, on the same 600 block, 2 streets down. And I heard the whistles and I heard the honking horns, and you don't know what's happening. But we know that whatever is happening outside of what the Constitution dictates, outside of what our laws mandate. And who's protecting us? Ultimately, that is the main concern that I have, and try to articulate over and over. And again, we have seen this in the past in other countries. When the deputy mayor, when we were talking about Mayor Johnson's call for a general strike, what came to mind was an event from last December, not in our country, but in South Korea. The president at the time, late at night, around 10 or 10:30 at night, issued a declaration of martial law. And the response of the people around the country, not just in Seoul, but in cities around the country, was immediate and was intense. People poured into the streets and they didn't leave the streets. People surrounded the Parliament building to prevent the president's agents from entering and clearing a path for parliamentarians to enter. And it was in virtually no time, less than 2 days. That parliament that had a majority of the president's party voted unanimously to impeach that president. In other words, the president's own party unanimously voted to impeach. He was ultimately arrested, charged, and then removed from office, and then convicted of crimes against the country, treason, and imprisoned. Those final events happened, and that was an expression of a people who understand what it means to have democracy threatened. They have an understanding of what authoritarianism means. They understand that nobody is safe from violence from a dictator. Even if that dictator is identifying particular enemies, nobody ultimately is safe. Rights and freedoms are threatened. If you don't have freedom of speech, you don't have freedom of association, you don't have freedom to protest, you're not free. And it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you are on, eventually it's going to come against you. And so what rescued South Korea's democracy was that instantaneous pouring of people into the streets. And what I have been asking is, what will it take? Why don't Americans understand this threat? What prevents us from mobilizing against the threats that we face? These are ultimately the questions that I've been asking. We have the potential. We can believe what Mr. Trump has said and what his chief associates have said when they say if the courts don't support them, they will send the military in. And members of the military take an oath to the Constitution, not to an individual. There are laws against deployment of the military domestically. But again, the question comes, who will enforce those laws? We are hoping to be joined by Illinois National Guard Reservist Captain Dylan Blaha. He's a candidate for Congress in the 13th District. Hopefully he will be able to come. But I think until then, we will take a short break now and hope that we can see Mr. Blaha soon.
If you're purchasing a new home or refinancing your existing home, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Corey called to consolidate his debt and was so happy with my advice, he left me this 5-star Google review. Quote, I was looking to pay off debt, so I reached out to David after listening to his radio show. David called me personally and walked me through my options. He shot it straight. There was no beating around the bush or pushing me to sign anything. If any of my family or friends need anything related to a mortgage, I'll give them David's number because you can't get better or more honest service. Thanks, Corey. I strongly encourage everyone to check out our close to 600 5-star Google reviews from listeners like Corey. Team Hochberg helped Corey and thousands of radio listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. That's 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, MLS 1124061.
I didn't ask to be thrown in the streets with nowhere to go, but I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there for me.
1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year. For these kids who didn't ask to be put in this unthinkable situation, Covenant House is there, providing hot meals, a safe place to sleep, medical care, and love.
They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
To learn more, go to safeplacetosleep.org today.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or Pete.
From city streets to political beats, you're driving it home with Patti Vasquez, where progressive talk fuels the ride.
You are listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I am Joel Ostrow, guest hosting for Patti, and we are joined now by Dylan Blaha, who is a candidate for U.S. Congress from Illinois District 13, and captain in Illinois National Guard. And Dylan, if you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit about your experience over the last few months? You've been quite explicit in messaging to former service people, both in the Guard and in the military generally. Perhaps you could share what your message is to them, given the threats of sending military into our cities, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I started speaking out in, I would say, early June when Trump first threatened Los Angeles and he sent the National Guard in for absolutely no reason to defend a bunch of federal buildings and protect federal officers was his claim. So later that was ruled out to be illegal. And really when I started making videos and speaking out, it was focused on his threats on Chicago and then on Portland, because this violates the Posse Comitatus Act, which I think you've already talked about a little bit. And so it's just, I've said it time and time again that this is not something that most National Guard soldiers are trained to do. We're not trained to go into American cities and conduct crowd control, other than maybe a very small, specific amount of units. And soldiers on Title 10 orders on active duty cannot assist law enforcement. That is against the law. So yeah, I've been campaigning for Congress since early April, but throughout that time, I've also been speaking out just because I think it's one of the issues that I feel confident to speak out on, and I believe that all leaders who have a platform should use it to speak out, and so that's what I'm doing.
And when you join the Guard or the military, my understanding is there is training in sort of Geneva Convention kind of laws and on Posse Comitatus, a bit like on what your oath is to the Constitution, right? Not to a dictator, not to a king, not to a president. It's to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. The Posse Comitatus, for those who don't know, dates all the way back to the time of Reconstruction, I believe.
In the late 1800s.
Late 1800s, but more like right after the Civil War. And it was to prevent uniformed military from enforcing Jim Crow laws in the South and really trying to it was an effort to heal the Union and to not allow divisions to reappear and not use armed forces for those actions. But it has come over time to mean no domestic deployment of military. So, yeah, I did want to ask, and we talked about it a little bit before you came on air, if you were, well, maybe not you, but you know people who've served, a regular person who is in the military, if these orders come to deploy to Chicago or Portland or San Francisco or wherever, and they're clearly in violation of, there is no insurrection going on in the country, so there is no need for domestic deployment of military. There's a need not to. What do you anticipate what would it be like to be a commander or to be a rank and file soldier in those circumstances?
I think it's hard because a lot of people, they think what's going on is wrong, but they don't necessarily speak up. I've had a lot of soldiers that have come to me that say, hey, I've got your back, I agree with you, but you're crazy for speaking out. And that's kind of the general consensus. So
Folks, that's what it means to have a political system based on fear. Because that is as anti-democracy as it gets, right? To fear speaking up.
No, it's crazy, and I think a lot of these commanders will be scared because they don't want to be the one that orders their soldiers to do something that ends up leading to them committing a war crime.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen in the past, just following orders is not an excuse for war crimes.
Have you talked to those who are still sort of like, are there large numbers who don't know what they would do? I would imagine that those are not the units then that would be sent.
Yeah, that's true. I think I hear a lot of people go, "Oh, everything that's going on is so crazy right now, huh?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, that's one way to put it. Yeah, I would call it authoritarianism,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that's just me. But
no, it's not.
and I do hope that by speaking out, it gives other people the courage to speak out, because it's not being a bad soldier to say, "Hey, I signed up to defend the Constitution. I signed up to defend the American people. I didn't sign up to enact President Trump's political war and political agenda."
Yeah, no, you definitely did not. You have faced some consequences, or maybe I should say are facing some consequences for speaking out. Shocker. Could you maybe, where are those consequences coming from, or to the extent you're able to discuss them?
Yeah, so I mean, just with the campaign, I make videos pretty routinely, and every once in a while they'll be political in nature, speaking out, and two specific ones went very viral, millions and millions.
That's why you're on with me. I saw one of those. I caught the virus.
No, I'm glad. And I think because those went so viral, they reverberated throughout the Pentagon, as I was told, and
that was your intent, no?
Yeah,
you wanted people to hear it, right?
Exactly, and so I think they got seen by the right and the top people, and so that's why they suspended my security clearance, even though what I was doing had nothing to do with security. I was asking soldiers to disobey future unlawful orders, and
which they are obligated to do.
Yeah,
by the law
under Article 92 of UCMJ, they're also obligated to do that. And so, they suspended my security clearance, and I'm still under investigation. So there's I have no idea what they're going to try to do, but either way, I've said that I won't let them stifle my free speech.
UCMJ, by the way, is the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which also, when you join the services, you become familiar with. I don't know how familiar you have to become with it, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. They go over it in basic training, and you're overwhelmed because you have 60 classes every day. They might have spent 10 minutes on it. Usually a lot of these things, before you deploy, like before I deployed to Afghanistan, I was there from 19 to 20. They go over everything in a lot more detail for you then, usually.
Yeah, foreign deployment, sure. Yeah. I am curious to try and build off the conversation I had prior with the deputy mayor. You're aware that Mayor Johnson, in a speech a couple days ago, called for a general strike. To my knowledge, he's the first elected official to use that phrase.
Yeah.
Governor Pritzker, in a speech in New Hampshire in February, called for a mass movement of resistance. That was back when the Musk and his chainsaw were slashing federal government against congressional orders. Here's the thinking about a future military deployment. I want to hear your reaction to this. I've said this on air with Patti and with Joan. Scenario A, there's a few hundred people demonstrating in the streets and the military are deployed. Scenario B, there's a few 100,000 people in the streets and the military are deployed. You're a soldier deployed. How is your behavior different in those two scenarios?
It's tough because ultimately, I hope a lot of people know that if you're asked as a soldier to go against protesters in any way, that is illegal. And so kind of like the adjutant general in Oregon said, if I was deployed, I would be there to protect protesters against ICE, against anyone that would be
and just make sure that they were able to protest peacefully. But yeah, I think a lot of soldiers would be intimidated by that large crowd, and I ultimately think...
I would hope they would be swayed by the crowd.
Hopefully.
Right? I mean, around the world, history has shown that, look, the military are the people, right? Yeah. You're National Guard. You're an American citizen. You're a young American citizen. I used to be a young American citizen, right? Whether it was Tahrir Square in Egypt, despite how things turned out, in both waves of protests, the military, the uniformed military, were with the people because the people were with the military.
Yeah.
When I say thank you for your service and thank you for your service, I mean that is, I recognize that you are from me. You are defending the rights that I hold dear. Exactly. You're defending our Constitution. The military are the people, and the fear that I have is precisely the military are the people. We are polarized 50-50 between fascism and democracy in this country. I can only imagine that the military are, in my prior conversation about the state police or Chicago police, right? We are divided. But if you have that overwhelming number of people in the streets, I can't imagine that 22-year-old soldiers are going to move against an unarmed mass population in the streets. I don't know.
No, that's true. Yeah, I think the hope either way from Donald Trump is that somebody makes a mistake and things escalate. I do think that is the goal of putting military in the streets, is to stoke fear and control. But you're right. I do hope that a mass movement, kind of like we saw on No King's Day, I mean, that was ultimately really symbolic. I know. I mean, it only did
a sunny Saturday,
but it was at least a time that hopefully a lot of these people came out, they joined groups, they continue to organize.
That's the key.
Then we can sway people. Because look at the Philippines. Part of the reason after Duterte was in power is that the military stood up to him, and unfortunately we need that again now.
Or as I was mentioning in South Korea, because the people were in the streets, the military stood with the people.
Yep.
And stood up to the wannabe dictator there. Ultimately, when people go into the streets, it is my hope, right? The police are still us as well. Yeah. And even if they are facing the wrong way, which I feel very strongly in Broadview, the police are facing the wrong direction.
I've been there, yeah.
They should have their backs with the people and protecting the people. You got to bring them flowers. You got to bring them water. You got to bring them Snickers. And you got to, when I was growing up watching Saturday morning cartoons, there was a public service announcement that went, call a friend, call a cop. And so from being a toddler, the police are there. They're your friend. And we need to remind, whether it's police or soldiers ultimately on the streets, but it's going to take a lot of people, I think, to...
Well, and like you said, I mean, police, National Guard, like these are members of our community.
Yeah.
And so it's not like ICE, where these are just random federalized people coming from who knows where with
masks.
Thousands and thousands of with masks and large bonuses that really just want to target brown people.
Yeah, but not only brown people. I mean, yes, that's who they're initially targeting, but that's not the only people they're taking, as you well know, as you've seen, right?
U.S. citizens as well.
U.S. citizens, yeah. Anyone who dares to speak out, to blow a whistle to alert people. Since when did it become illegal to blow a whistle?
Yeah, some of the comments I notice most on my social media are people saying they want me deported. They want me in jail for my words, I mean, so they clearly don't believe in free speech anymore, at least when it comes to anything that they disagree with.
Yeah. We need to take a short break because we're nearing the top of the hour. But would you mind staying? We're going to be joined by Rachel Cohen, who I know you know, and she wasn't expecting us to have a joint conversation. But since you've both been at Broadview and some of what I want to talk to her about, maybe we can have a three-way conversation when we come back from the break. Yeah. Thank you.
You have probably heard my ads here on WCPT for the last few years. Your fellow listeners, when we have completed their plans, say, I wish I had done this sooner. It wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be. We can complete your estate plan within 30 days or less. There are certainly decisions that need to be made, but my 30-plus years of experience will help guide you through this process. There may never be a perfect time to start, but whenever I'm asked when is the best time, my answer is always the same. Now is the best time, while it is on your mind. Being able to tell your family that you have an estate plan in place, that all the details have been taken care of, will be a great relief to both yourself and those you care for the most. Our initial consultation is without charge, and there is no obligation. My phone number is 847-996-0496, and my website is moreelawoffice.com, spelled M-O-R-E-E. I look forward to speaking with you.
Protect your liver and give it the support that it deserves with Active Liver from New Nordic. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or NewNordicUSA.com.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. A group of 11 Democratic U.S. senators have raised concerns about the use of full-body restraints on deportation flights. Jim Mustian has details.
The senators are asking for a lot of information that ICE has not released, including about its use of a restraint system called the RAP. Now, this is a system that the Associated Press detailed in an investigation earlier this month, documenting its use on deportation flights sometimes for hours at a time. Detainees who have been subjected to this device have actually likened it to torture. The senators have asked DHS and ICE to provide this data. In response to this letter, the Associated Press has been asking for the same information. It's very likely that the RAP could come up.
Pass in the House, Trump would most likely veto it. While the Senate vote is largely symbolic, it is also the latest note of displeasure over Trump's trade tactics, exposing fault lines in the Republican Party as high prices weigh heavily for their constituents. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
And Ed Donahue has the latest news from Buckingham Palace.
King Charles is stripping his disgraced brother, Prince Andrew, of his remaining titles. He's also evicting him from his royal residence.
I am pretty astonished, I have to say.
It comes after weeks of pressure to act over Andrew's relationship with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
This is the strongest action against a member of the royal family.
Royal commentator Jenny Bond says the king is acting in harmony with public opinion, media opinion, and parliamentary opinion.
I've never seen as much criticism of a member of the royal family as we've had of Andrew, even to the point that, you know, over last weekend, I was feeling a touch uneasy about being part of that pylon on Andrew, wondering just how far it could go.
Andrew will be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and not as a prince, and he will move from his Royal Lodge residence into private accommodation. I'm Ed Donahue.
This is AP News. Damian Troisi has the AP Markets Report.
Stocks fell on Wall Street Thursday, pulling back from their record heights. The S&P 500 fell 1%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.2%. The Nasdaq Composite fell 1.6%. Wall Street weighed mixed developments on the U.S.-China trade war and profits for big tech companies. The U.S. is trimming tariffs on China following a meeting between leaders of both nations, but major tensions remain. Tech stocks were the biggest drag on the broader market. Facebook parent Meta Platforms and Microsoft fell. Google's parent Alphabet rose following its latest profit report. Damian Troisi, New York.
And mortgage rates are down again this week. Freddie Mac puts the average 30-year at 6.17%, the lowest in more than a year. There's more news at apnews.com. I'm Ben Thomas. Thanks for listening.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Mainly cloudy skies tonight, a low temperature of 41 degrees and light northwest winds. Friday, showers developing in the afternoon, otherwise sunny with a high temperature of 54, northwest winds at 5 to 15. Saturday, chance of showers with a high temperature around 50. Sunday, sunny with a high of 54. Monday, sunshine with a high temperature of 58 degrees. Tuesday, sunny with a high of 59. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 52.
Today,
1 in 5 working-age Americans has a mental health condition.
People in all types of jobs and at all levels.
And the key to helping us succeed is a supportive and inclusive workplace.
All of us have a role to play in making that happen.
So what can I do to help?
As a CEO, I can set the tone for supportive culture.
As a manager, I can offer assistance and accommodations.
As a coworker, I can listen and be a source of support to my colleagues.
As someone with a mental health condition, I can ask for what I need to perform my best.
I can offer all employees the supports they need to deliver on the job, for the team
and for the business.
What can I do?
What can I do?
What can I do?
I can remind others
that we all benefit from workplaces that promote good mental health.
Mental health-friendly workplaces are more important than ever.
And all of us have a role to play in promoting them.
Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Friday on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be here taking your calls and talking to Stacey Davis Gates of the Chicago Teachers Union, James Zirin, author, legal analyst, and a former federal prosecutor in New York's Southern District, and Danielle Perry of the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Live, Local, and Progressive weekdays from 2 to 5 Central on WCPT AM 820, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. You are listening to Drive It Home with Patti Vasquez, but you're not listening to Patti Vasquez. She's on vacation. I am guest hosting for her. My name is Joel Ostrow, political science professor at Benedictine University, and we'd like to welcome Minnesota KTNF AM 950, AM 1150, KKNW in Seattle, and of course we are here on WCPT 820. I'm joined by Captain Dylan Blaha of the Illinois National Guard and candidate for U.S. Congress in Illinois' 13th District. And we are also joined by Rachel Cohen, Chicago lawyer, and Rachel, if I may, activist, and a quite effective one. We only recently became acquainted virtually, but really glad to have you. And Rachel, hope you don't mind. I've asked Dylan to stay on because you have both been out there at Broadview. And maybe if you don't mind starting, Rachel, I would like you to, what do you see when you're out there at Broadview and perhaps other locations? Can you describe a little bit what it's like out there when you've gone out there?
Thanks so much for having me, Joel, and I'm thrilled that Dylan's still there. He's a great advocate, and wishing him the best in his congressional campaign. What we see on the ground at Broadview is, frankly, illegal behavior and secret police-style tactics that would not be out of place in 1930s Germany, in modern-day Russia, in authoritarian regimes broadly. What I see that is surprising to me, because unfortunately at this point I'm no longer surprised by the federal government's authoritarian tendencies in Trump 2.0, is that we've also seen a decent amount of collaboration from the Illinois State Police and local police departments in violation of the Illinois Trust Act, which bars Illinois law enforcement officials from not just assisting in immigration enforcement, but, and I'm appreciative of you for spurring me to double check this legislation before I joined this afternoon, but bars them from doing things like setting up security perimeters to facilitate ICE enforcement activities. And I think that's what we've seen over and over again, particularly over the last month, because I've been at Broadview whenever I am in the Chicago area on Fridays since the end of August. And as there were more and more people that were joining us at Broadview to express their anger about these disappearances happening at the hands of ICE agents off the streets of Chicago, we've seen Illinois State Police in particular become involved to restrict protest, and not just to, violate First Amendment rights in that way, but also to violate the Illinois Trust Act, to assist the federal government in violating, and that's going to be, I think, a commonly used word over the course of the next half an hour, in violating people's Fourth Amendment rights to not be snatched off the streets without a warrant. And so happy to speak to kind of specific experiences, but over the last couple of weeks in particular, we've seen Illinois State Police with batons setting up security perimeters. We've been restricted to quote unquote free speech zones. There's a large sign saying that there's no protest allowed in certain areas of the Broadview streets around the facility. And that's really troubling, not just because of what it says about protest, but because of the ways that it allows the feds to be more efficient in disappearing our neighbors off the streets. And CBS Chicago reported 1 or 2 days ago that there are supposedly 3,000 people that have been arrested by federal authorities in Operation Midway Blitz, this increased immigration enforcement. And they are unable or unwilling to provide records about where those 3,000
can't
people
account
are,
for them.
which I think is can't account for them or won't. And I think that's particularly troubling in light of Miami Herald reporting that 800 of the 1,200 people who were detained at the Everglades concentration camp are also missing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack there, and happy to dive into any of it.
Yeah, and I did read at the top of the show from the Illinois Trust Act, they're banned from, and this is a quote, they're not allowed to, quote, assist in any capacity. So I'm no lawyer, but I can read standard written English. In any capacity is pretty definitive. Dylan, is there anything you'd like to add, like sort of what you see on the ground, either at Broadview or other locations?
No, I just think it's pretty comical that like Rachel said, the free speech can only be exercised from 9 to 6 in Broadview in a specific corner. It's just it's a slow normalization of the loss of our rights. And just like we've said with the slow militarization of our American cities. So we need to stand up now because they'll just keep taking our rights away.
Yeah, the Illinois State Police, Rachel, I think I told you this, that they did respond to request with a blanket refusal to discuss anything relating to immigration issues. And that was they do have a press officer and public relations people, but blanket refusal, which is also troubling, is it not? And I asked, we had the deputy mayor on earlier, Deputy Mayor Ponce de Leon, she's deputy mayor for migrant and refugee rights, and sort of expressed my frustration that, well, Rachel, you've called for the governor to remove the state police from there. I don't actually support that. I want the state police there. I want them to turn around and protect the people. And you're laughing, but Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker have been quite vocal calling for that. But words are meaningless without action. And I adore this governor. Got long familial connections with his family going back centuries. But it infuriates me that it's been just talk. May I ask, because this does, when you've been out there, can you identify anything that triggers aggressiveness by ICE, or are they really legitimately the provocateurs? Certainly they will say that there have been provocations, but what is it that you see?
I think, and I am really appreciative of particularly how Mayor Johnson's office has approached this encroachment on our streets, but important to note that, of course, he doesn't have jurisdiction in the village of Broadview, and so it's difficult to say how he would be responding if this was happening in Chicago city limits. Of course, enforcement actions are, but this kind of center of protest is outside of his jurisdiction, though it is in Cook County. And I think that there's a real difference. Yep. I think there's a real difference between the kind of rhetoric that we're seeing come out of Governor Pritzker's office and what we're seeing on the ground. And I think it's important that our elected officials connect that the kind of, and I will come to your question because I think it's important to talk about the inciting violence in this moment, and to steal Mayor Johnson's frame, which I think is 100% accurate. Even if there were provocations, which I have not witnessed personally, at the end of the day, everything comes back to ICE agents disappearing people off of our streets in violation of the Constitution. And so I'm not particularly interested in standalone confrontations between protesters and ICE agents who are violating the Fourth Amendment. But I think that in general, and I apologize for chortling at the suggestion that ISP would turn around and defend people from ICE, but I think that the mayor's office and the governor's office would be very well served to acknowledge that there's a history of state violence against particularly Black and brown Chicagoans and Illinois residents at the hands of ISP and CPD, the Chicago Police Department.
And the
And I
sheriffs.
think that, and the sheriffs and, law enforcement broadly, which is of course not to say that that is true of all law enforcement officials or even the majority of them. But I think there's a lot of value in pointing out that when we normalize violence against civilians at the hands of armed members of state law enforcement, these things are ultimately connected. And so it's difficult for me to imagine the Illinois State Police intervening on behalf of protesters, because we saw pretty significant violence waged by Illinois law enforcement against, for example, protesters in the summer of 2020. But I think that what frustrates me immensely is the kind of rhetoric that we see coming out of the governor's office, specifically when then Illinois State Police are being deployed in violation of Illinois state law and guidance that is posted on the Attorney General's website about what Illinois law enforcement officers are allowed to engage in based on that law. Because it's not just, there's maybe even a little bit of squishy wiggle room in terms of whether or not setting up perimeters is assisting in ICE enforcement, which is why it was so striking to me when I went to review the Illinois Trust Act before joining you today, that there is a separate provision that explicitly bars them from setting up security perimeters for the sake of ICE enforcement.
And yet they're doing it. Yeah.
They are doing it. And that the governor has been confronted by members of the public who have asked him to stop doing that, and he does not seem concerned. And so I'm very disappointed in the kind of strong rhetoric that we see about protecting our Illinois residents from ICE, not only not being matched by action, but in fact being undercut by illegal action directed by ISP.
Dylan, may I ask you, as Rachel was talking, what is the relationship between the governor and the Illinois National Guard? Isn't he technically in charge, in air quotes?
He is, yeah.
Of the Guard?
So as long as the military forces are still under state control, as long as they're not federalized. So a lot of time when Trump has tried to deploy Illinois National Guard and Texas National Guard to Chicago, that was under a Title X authority where he was essentially plucking them from the governor and saying they answer to Pete Hegseth and me, Donald Trump. So,
but is that not just the units that are deployed? Doesn't the rest of the Guard force still fall under, or is they federalize the entirety of the Guard? How does that work?
Usually it's just a unit at a time.
Yeah, so couldn't the governor deploy the Guard to protect the people?
Yeah, I mean, you could literally get into a situation where you have red state forces and blue state forces, and it's just it could get messy very fast, which is why we should not be using our military as pawns right now or ever.
And Rachel asked someone earlier today, I wasn't going to bring this up on air, but since you brought it up indirectly, if the state police are not behaving consistent with the governor's public pronouncements, doesn't the chief of the state police, I think that's the title, serve at the pleasure of the governor? But then I was told, well, then no one will take those positions because they'll just get fired if they don't follow orders. But my retort to that was, well, look at what the fascists have done at the federal level. If you get rid of all of the officers who are not following orders, not obeying the law in this case, and replace them with officers who will support the Constitution and the law, that's a lot of upward mobility.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that there's also that distinction that you just made is really, really important between just following orders of the governor and following Illinois state law. Because I don't necessarily want there to be people in charge of militarized forces. And in the United States, our police are very much militarized forces. If you look at the 1033 program where you can buy decommissioned military equipment, which is its own issue. But I don't necessarily want a chief of police who is following orders in line with whoever is elected in that moment. But I think that when there is a widely popular, widely invoked state law that they should be following and they are ignoring, that feels very different.
That's a bigger
to me.
problem, is it not? I'm sorry to interrupt. We have to take a quick break. We will be right back.
A Better Life with Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
We've talked a lot about screen time, but a new study out of Weill Cornell Medical College says parents should really worry more about their kids becoming addicted to these devices rather than just how much time they spend on them. So what does that mean? Compulsive use or uncontrollable urge to use the devices, checking their phone every few minutes, or classic symptoms of withdrawal, meaning that they get anxious or irritable or sad when they don't have access to the platforms. So what can you do? Set boundaries early on. You might also need to encourage, in some cases even plan, activities for your child if they're having trouble getting motivated to engage with friends offline. As a parent, you need to model a healthy relationship with your own phone. That means practicing what you preach and explaining why moderation is key when it comes to these devices. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta, helping you live a better life.
Stop your grinding with Brooks Night Guard. Are you waking up in the morning with a sore jaw, headaches, ringing in your ears, all because you're grinding and clenching your teeth at night? That's exactly what was going on with me. I ended up going to a dentist, and he wants to charge over $600 for a night guard. That's when I found the Brooks Night Guard. You mold it at home to the top or bottom teeth. Other mouth guards go all the way to the back, which allows the back teeth to touch. This is where most of the grinding and clenching occurs. The Brooks Night Guard redirects the bite force away from the back teeth, reducing jaw pain while still protecting the teeth. This unique design is what makes Brooks Night Guard different from all other traditional grind guards. Order your Brooks Night Guard today and get 10% off plus free shipping. Go to brooksnightguard.com and enter the code BROOKS91. That's BRUX91. Stop your grinding with Brooks Night Guard.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
No detours, no distractions, just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
I am Joel Ostrow, and I am joined here on WCPT by Rachel Cohen, a Chicago attorney and activist, and congressional candidate and captain in the Illinois National Guard, Dylan Blaha. And Dylan and I were chatting a little bit over the break. Rachel, I think I'll start with you and then ask Dylan to respond. Aside from the issue with the state police, Rachel, if you could make an ask of the governor, what would be, besides pulling the state police or changing them, what would be your most urgent request to the governor?
It's difficult to identify an urgent request of the governor other than effectively utilizing the Illinois State Police in this way, because I'm very sympathetic to the governor's position. I think far more so than many other activists around things like calling up the Illinois National Guard to protect people. We have a president that is very willing to engage in militarized action, and I understand not wanting to escalate in terms of state resistance or state confrontation. And so I think that requesting that the governor, I think that my most urgent ask of the governor would be that he show up at Broadview, actually, if it doesn't have to do with Illinois State Police, because he has not done that. The lieutenant governor has been at Broadview. A number of federal electeds have shown up at Broadview, Chuy Garcia, Delia Ramirez, and JP Pritzker has not. And it's very easy to say, I support protest, but when the only way that we are seeing you at Broadview is in the form of Illinois State Police officers wielding batons against peaceful protesters, it's a little difficult to take that seriously.
Yeah, and I agree that fear of escalation is ultimately a fear of defending democracy. I wonder, Dylan, what your if you had an ask of the governor, what would it be?
I think right now I would ask the governor if he could send a message to Illinois National Guard members and just remind them of the oath they took, and try to say, hey, I don't want to politicize the military, which President Trump is trying to do, and to make a statement similar to what that Oregon tag said, as far as, hey, if you are deployed, I want you to protect protesters. That is what you need to do. You need to protect them against ICE. That's what I would ask him.
Sounds good. Rachel, I do have another question that's a little bit off of this, but I know from your numerous and really powerful videos, you keep doing that. And when I message you privately that it's inspiring, it really is, and really powerful. I've been on this station a number of times, particularly with Joan Esposito and with Patti. Often when it's not about Russia and Ukraine, which it usually is, but when it's about U.S. politics, there's some particular event or moment that relates to the fragility of our democracy that they want me to comment on. And I always come back at Joan by trying to step back and present a macro level picture, because none of these are single events. They're all part of a project, as it were. But it is difficult to articulate in a couple of sentences. I honestly think that you are much more effective at communicating that reality, and I wonder if you might share how you view the complex of attacks, and how you describe it, explain it, and warn about it.
Well, easy question. But
yeah.
No, I appreciate the kind words, and it is something that, especially because much of my advocacy takes place on social media, that I think about a lot. How do we distill this down? But I think that particularly given your areas of expertise and, I think our listeners' interest in this kind of longer form analysis, I think that these attacks have to be understood in a global context as a project of a couple of extremely wealthy people whose top priority is consolidating and maintaining power in the form of capital, and who have realized that xenophobic anti-migrant rhetoric is a great way for them to consolidate power. So I'm lucky in that I have gotten to travel not just throughout the United States talking about these things over the last 6 or 9 months, but also internationally. And there's a lot of focus from especially our allies in Europe, particularly in Germany, where, of course, there are deep and lasting scars in the national consciousness related to xenophobic fascism, that when I speak to people abroad, the exact same playbook is being used over and over again by the same people. Elon Musk is extremely involved in the rise of the AfD, the far-right neo-Nazi party in Germany. He was extremely involved in UK elections. He's extremely involved globally in this kind of far-right consolidation of power project. I assume that the vast majority of other kind of social media billionaires, tech billionaires, Alex Karp, Peter Thiel, these Palantir founders who are interested in stoking the war machine, and through the war machine, stoking increased surveillance that is reliant on their own technology, is what we are seeing. And I think that it cannot be decentered that the pathway to that kind of wealth for these men is rooted in extreme racism and xenophobia. But I do think, and this almost makes it more disgusting to me in some ways, that for people like Donald Trump, for people like Elon Musk, the racism is a side effect of their desire to continue to consolidate power. They have realized that many people are correctly angry about the quality of life in not just our country, but globally, as we continue to see increased technology, increased wealth, increased resources that then get funneled away to very few people. And so it's a sign that we see over and over again at protests They focus you on immigrants so that you do not focus on these tech billionaires and on these people who are consolidating power and Donald Trump's crypto scheme and everything else. And so there are very much people in the federal government who are motivated by deep racial animus and hate, like Stephen Miller.
Yeah.
But the people who are at the very top, who are shot calling, have just realized that partnership with those people is the fastest path to allow them to make a bunch of money off of cryptocurrency, and they are okay with the collateral side effects.
Hate has throughout history has been a powerful motivator, particularly of far right. But there's one, if I may wrap this discussion up with one note of optimism. You talk about Europe. There seems to be a recognition, election after election of late, including yesterday in the Netherlands. There's been a rejection of that message and a rejection of the far right, and we can only hope that continues and hope that that takes root here in our own country. Rachel Cohen, thank you so much. I hope we can continue our conversation into the distant future. Dylan, thank you so much for coming, and good luck in your campaign. We need to take a break. We'll be back with Heidi Stevens after the break. Thank you.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. Mainly cloudy skies tonight, a low temperature of 41 degrees and light northwest winds. Friday, showers developing in the afternoon, otherwise sunny with a high temperature of 54, northwest winds at 5 to 15. Saturday, chance of showers with a high temperature around 50. Sunday, sunny with a high of 54. Monday, sunshine with a high temperature of 58 degrees. Tuesday, sunny with a high of 59. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 52.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. Ever wonder why Big Wireless wants you on an unlimited plan? They probably want you to cover the cost of those 20-somethings using all that data every month. But most people 50 and up like me only use 12 gigs or less. Don't get bamboozled by Big Wireless. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Our plans start at just $20, and we use the same towers as the big guys. Join the millions who choose something better, because if you're not using all that data, you're probably getting used.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
For the longest time, it was hard for me to even get out of the house, much less do a backside 180. It took me a bit to understand what was going on, but eventually I learned I had anxiety. Now I'm getting help for it and feeling so much better. Sure, some days are better than others, but the whole thing about getting out of the house, that's not really an issue anymore.
Mental health care is working. See what it can do for you at mentalhealthcareworks.org. A message from the American Psychiatric Association Foundation.
Every day, we go about our lives driven by routine. Our vision clouded by the very normalcy we take for granted. Countless victims of human trafficking walk among us, invisible. It's time to open our eyes. The Blue Campaign provides a unified voice for those who combat human trafficking, whether it's forced labor, domestic servitude, or the sex trade. Learn what you can do to help by visiting dhs.gov/Blue Campaign.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
Did you know you can listen to, rate, and share the Driving It Home full episodes and feature interview podcasts? They're both available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, and Amazon Music. Search for Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez or visit our brand new podcast page at heartlandsignal.com/podcasts. We are joined now by Heidi Stevens, my favorite syndicated columnist and a friend. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Joel. How's it going?
It's going all right. I don't know if you were able to catch any of the earlier part of the show. It has not necessarily been the happiest of conversations. Most of it focused on the federal actions around the Chicagoland and the actions and lack of legal actions by state police, disconnect between politicians, statements and actions of law enforcement. And sort of what to do about that. I wanted to talk to you today, and I know that I didn't share with you what I wanted to talk to you about. You often write about, either in your columns or social media posts, about so much of the awfulness that is going on around us, not only in Chicago, but around the country. And yet, almost without fail, somehow your columns find a note of warmth, of optimism, of kindness. And the question I want to ask you is I'm sure an infuriating or impossible one. But do you know where do you get that from? Where does that come from?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking that. It's not infuriating. I love that question. I'm impossible, maybe, maybe true, but I'm going to give it my best shot. So thank you for the opportunity. I will say that it comes from a true and authentic place. And by that, I mean, I really do believe with my whole heart that we are here to love and to experience joy and wonder, and also heartbreak and pain and all the human things, but that the human experience is mostly supposed to be one of pleasures and enjoyments and sunrises and losing our breath at how gorgeous mountains are, and being awed at a child being born with all of its fingernails and all those things. And I think that it's okay and even necessary to remember that when we're having these really heated debates and discussions and fights with one another. I don't think when I get to the end of my life, I'm going to think I wish I spent more time fighting with people on Twitter. I think I'm going to be glad that I saw every sunrise I saw and every sunset I saw, and sang with friends out loud at concerts. And so I think that that when we're debating these topics, and when we're deciding who to vote for, and we're deciding what policies to back and which ones to bash, and what programs should deserve funding, and where our philanthropic dollars should go, I think it all really is the way to decide what we want our own human experience to be, right? But also what we think other people's human experience deserves to be, right? Like, I don't have a unique or divine right to see beautiful things. Like, I want everybody to have that ability and right and freedom and space and luxury. So it's like why I advocate for the stuff I advocate for, but it's also like, it's because life is supposed to be enjoyable.
Nobody who reads your columns could doubt that it comes from a genuine place. And if any listeners are not familiar with Heidi Stevens' columns, go find them. It doesn't, they don't read like, take time to smell the roses, right? It's almost like your approach is the opposite of that. Spend life smelling the roses, and when there's a problem, like, address it. I think that, at least for me, that's since discovering your columns a couple of years ago, that's kind of how I view them.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think the danger in using whatever platform any of us has to just say, take time to smell the roses, is the blinders that requires you to put on, and the blind spots that allows you to ignore in the fact that like some people are nowhere near roses, right? Or some people have to walk by the roses on their way to work and don't have time to stop and smell them. And it would be a very privileged and oppressive take to say in this moment,
100%.
But in other moments we've lived through too, don't forget to stop and smell the roses. Great, that's wonderful if you have that privilege. Lots of people don't. So what we also need to do is pause our smelling of the roses and advocate for the folks who don't have that privilege so that they also get to. Because we should stop and smell the roses, but until everybody gets to, like, that can't be the only thing we're talking about, right?
Well, right, like that, and your columns are such a range, like from the intensely personal. Your most recent one about your birthday, but you've had other columns about birthdays as well. But also, whether there are political catastrophes or tragedies, it's not like you ignore those. It's the opposite. You confront them head on, and you find. I hate to quote former President Bush, but you find the tiny points of light, and you focus on those as a way to respond to challenges, the good you can do in the face of bad. Do you have? This is going to sound weird. Are there one or two columns over the last couple of years that you've written that like your mind returns to? I was going to ask a favorite, but maybe something that continues to return to you. I often wonder about that because you're writing so frequently, and my writing is of a different nature.
Yeah, no, I love that question. I mean, the birthday column that you just brought up, I actually wrote last year because I turned 50 last October. I just turned 51 last week.
Happy birthday!
I wrote that. Thank you. I wrote that column as a thank you note to my 40s, and I do go back and read that one every once in a while because it was scary for me to write, and I think that sometimes the writing that I'm proudest of when I do it and that I'm most moved by and connect with when other people do it is the writing that probably is a little bit scary to write. I wrote about mistakes and missteps and lessons and imperfections in that column, all of which my life is filled with.
It was really raw. I mean, it was great.
Thank you. But you open yourself up for criticism, and the flip side of what we've been talking about this whole time so far is that because I do, write about current events and politics and race and religion and gender and all the things, and from a very progressive standpoint, I get a lot of pushback. Always have, and that's okay. I don't want this to be a monologue. I don't want to have the last word. I want dialogue. I want to hear all sides. When I share personal details about my life, you can imagine that gets weaponized. And so I pause before I do that always, but what's more important and what's definitely more gratifying is to hear from people who say like, oh God, I can relate, right? Or like, I thought it was just me. Or I'm going through this hard thing, and now I read that you went through it and are on the other side, and like now I have a little something to look forward to. And so the columns that are more personal are hardest and scariest to write, but they're the ones I find myself kind of going back to and rereading. I wrote a column my first year of being divorced, my first Christmas being divorced, about buying a pink Christmas tree that I share now every year on social media.
Yeah.
In December. And that was, I was a reporter at that time. I didn't have a column. I just sort of wrote that as a one-off as a favor to an editor, not a favor, but as a one-off assignment for an editor. And it was the first time I connected on a personal level with readers, and they opened up to me about all sorts of things in their life, grief and divorce, and just life not looking how they planned it to look, especially the holidays. And so those are the ones that I return to over and over, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the ones that really resonated was when you dropped your eldest off at college, and there was the sad and the pain and the hurt or the loss, but also sort of the beautiful flip side of that that came along with it that just resonated so powerfully for me. We need to take a quick break. I want to come back to that and follow up. So we'll be back in a moment.
You know that you can listen to Chicago's Progressive Talk on WCPT AM 820. Stream us live at WCPT820.com and on the TuneIn Radio app. Or you can ask Alexa, Siri, or Google to play WCPT from TuneIn. But now you have another option. We're simulcasting our programming overnights, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. on WSBC AM 1240 for a clearer reception in and around the city. Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. And now overnights on WSBC 1240 AM, where facts matter. WCPT Replay.
We have been blessed this morning to have Texas House Representative Trey Martinez with us. This is Trey Fisher Martinez from District 116.
The one thing that we need to know and be very, very clear about is Republicans, they are not afraid to use their power. They get power, they use it. Oftentimes with Democrats, we have a debate between the perfect and the good, right? Right. And we have to get out of that mindset, right? I mean, for anybody in Illinois that thinks that things aren't going the right way with this leadership, come stay with me for 2 weeks. Come follow me around for 2 weeks, and let's see who got the better deal. I mean, what the country is seeing today, Texas has been experiencing for 30 years. And so, let's be careful about how we define our Democratic leaders, because they are far above and beyond better than the other teams.
Keep listening to WCPT 820, because facts matter.
He has an overbite that makes him look like a cartoon character, a slightly crooked eye, and an uncommonly wrinkly neck. In the right light, he can look a little like a garden gnome, and he'll wear a bow tie just because. Sure, you might call him a little quirky, but that's exactly what makes him so perfect. Tuna is a 3-year-old Chihuahua Dachshund mix with more than 700,000 followers on Instagram, and it all started because he was adopted. You can't buy a best friend like Tuna, but you can adopt one. Help us save them all at bestfriends.org.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
You are listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT AM 820. I am Joel Ostrow filling in for Patti, and I'm joined by Heidi Stevens, syndicated columnist. Heidi, you mentioned sort of in passing in answer to another question before the break that you had worked as a reporter. In another life, I pretended to be a journalist. I was, for a couple of years, Moscow correspondent writing for Crane Communications and a variety of their publications. But you did it more seriously and professionally. I was wondering if you had the opportunity to ask a question of, say, the chief of the Illinois State Police or sheriff, were they to actually agree to answer questions from journalists, what would you ask today in relation to all that's going on with the federal incursions into our city?
Yeah, I mean, it's very unclear to me how and whether any of these tactics are legal that we're watching federal agents undertake. My gut is they're not. I would ask, is it legal to bash in a window and grab someone out of their car with no warrant or cause? And if not, why are there not arrests or warrants for arrest or prosecutions that we're witnessing? Now at least based on just the press conference today in Gary, that they're denying all of these things, but we see them, we see them on camera. So the denials only go so far. It's happening. It's happening that children are being tear gassed. In their neighborhoods. It's happening that people are being, having their windows bashed in. The story's horrific today out of the Gary Post-Tribune about the family who, their house was targeted. They, went in and arrested the parents. The mother was hiding in a closet in the basement. The father was hiding on the roof. The kid is a U.S. citizen. He's detained. He's a 14-year-old U.S. citizen. He's detained. If this is legal, please explain to me how it is. And if it's not legal, please explain to me why there's no consequences.
Yeah. And I can understand why journalists aren't asking the police that, because the police won't take interviews. But our elected officials do, the governor, mayor. And I just want to push back on that a teeny tiny bit. I don't know that they're not asking, right? Press conferences aren't the only place that journalists ask questions. So I do want to say I don't know that they're not asking that. I don't know that they haven't sent all sorts of questions via email, made questions on phone calls that we aren't privy to. They may be asking that and not getting answers. They may be asking that and getting answers, and they're working on a piece for Sunday. I certainly don't want to disparage any work that local journalists are doing right now. I think they're being so incredibly it's a hard job,
and it's a hard job, and they're doing it well. I mean, they are. They're doing it well. I don't think Rolling Stone is not writing about the resistance in Chicago if not for local journalists. Don Lemon is not in Chicago if not for local journalists. You know what I mean? They're getting up and and I know my former colleagues who are still at the Tribune, I know they're working for very little gratitude or pay.
Journalism is public service, and I will never bash the journalists.
Why aren't they asking? They might be asking.
No, well, the state police are refusing to answer. At least they blanket refusal that they issued to this station reads as if it's a form blanket refusal that they are issuing to everyone. So that was just in reference to the state police. But when it comes to the governor, we hear the questions that they're asking publicly, and you don't ever hear them ask. He's saying what he wants the people to be protected, but we see the state police facing the demonstrators with their weapons rather than facing the ICE to protect the people. Yeah. And I don't hear, I've asked journalists, both publicly on social media and privately, the ones I'm in touch with, why aren't people asking the governor these hard questions? Not that he controls the police and all that they do, but I have not heard in any of those public forums anyway, that kind of question. If the police aren't doing that, what are you going to do about it? Kind of follow-up question.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I also, honestly, I wonder about how the residents of Illinois are answering that question in their own hearts and minds. I mean, I'm having so many debates with people about well, are they here legally or not? Or are the loopholes hard to close or not? at some point, all of that matters. Of course it matters. At some point, are we really forgetting that these people's human rights are being trampled all over and violated in a way that is not how, even if every single one of them was a criminal, which we have every statistic showing that they're not. The vast majority have no criminal convictions. Even if they had criminal convictions, this treatment would be inhumane and I thought illegal.
Unconstitutional.
So that's the part that unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional.
So that's the part that, like, yes, those questions should be asked of our leaders, but I also, like, that's what I want to ask just people who are like justifying this. It's like, I'm sorry, you think that mother should have had to hide in a closet in the basement and then be taken away and sent to Texas, and her children are alone, and one of them has a black eye, and like that's
right. And
we don't do that to school shooters, Joel. We have amendments that spell out how convicted criminals, alleged criminals are treated, and we're not following any of that. And so just like voters and citizens, how are you explaining that to your own selves as you're falling asleep at night? Like, it blows
and if
my
it's
mind.
just immigration status, we need to say this over and over and over again and not stop saying it. These are civil violations. They are not criminal.
Violations.
They are not criminal. And so nobody should be handcuffed for overstaying their visa. It's just not. It's not. So it's not about immigration. It's about something else. It seems pretty clear. I want to get back to the original line of questioning I had for you. Okay. Do you have? And maybe I missed a column. I feel like I read one, but do you sort of if you found a Heidi-like story out of these federal incursions into our city? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I totally know what you mean. It's a great question. It's not a column, at least not one I've written yet, but I've been jumping in the lake every day of October.
I know.
And it started.
Go jump in the lake. Do it for me.
It started as a way to sort of like close your laptop, put your phone down, stop fighting with people on Twitter, just go jump in the lake. And then it was a way to kind of cool my rage, and so it's taken on sort of different reasons. But I vowed, like, I'm doing this every day of October. Like just good. I just need something to sort of orient my days around.
Yeah, one more day.
One more day. The water's down to 52 degrees. It's very cold, and it's uncomfortable at this point. And the bathrooms have closed at the beach.
Oh,
so
no.
I can't change into dry clothes. So I have to come home in wet clothes. It's hilarious. It's all hilarious. But I will say, like, to bring it back to your question, I keep meeting people on the beach. Like I was there one day this week, and a guy was walking by, and he yelled from the path. He's like, "Are you jumping in the water?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm jumping in the water." And he came down, and he was like this tourist from San Diego. He took a video and stuff. I might share it on social later. Hilarious. But I keep meeting these people. I met a guy the other day who was picking up trash on the beach, and we had a little conversation about how his daughter does mission trips to Colombia to help kids with cleft palates. And like, it's such a it's something that I started out doing kind of selfishly or like self-care-ishly. And in the process, and this is so Chicago, and I guess kind of so what I try to do in my columns, it has been such a beautiful North Star / reminder of like what Chicago really is and what humanity really is, right? Like, there's all these people like in my teeny tiny little corner of my teeny tiny city in the grand scheme of things. I keep meeting fascinating, interesting, widely ranging life experiences as humans. And that's why we're all here. And what if we just all kind of like leveraged that to make the world better?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get my head around how to make that into a column, but
you
that's
will.
my experience.
You will.
I'll try, but that's my experience right now. Is like in this moment of like despair, looking for a way to keep myself from giving into despair, and in that searching, finding that like it's the other humans that keep me from despair.
Heidi, Lady B is going to kill me. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. I'm Joel Ostrow. Coming up next is Rick Smith, and this is me signing off.
Teachers are dynamic leaders, shaping a new generation. They bring a variety of perspectives from diverse backgrounds, innovating how they teach to prepare students for our fast-changing world. Achieving this takes skill and expertise. They're tireless explorers, creatively discovering a universe of solutions, telling stories, experimenting, inspiring, mentoring, connecting cultures, and connecting with each other. Leading by example. Experience the unique joy of helping students thrive. Teaching is a journey that shapes lives. Are you ready to begin? Explore teaching at teach.org, a campaign supported by the U.S. Department of Education, teach.org, and 1 million teachers of color.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, and boom, you're missing a part. But it's okay, because whatever it is, it's on eBay, and it's guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
You know that you can listen to Chicago's Progressive Talk on WCPT AM 820. Stream us live at WCPT820.com and on the TuneIn Radio app. Or you can ask Alexa, Siri, or Google to play WCPT from TuneIn. But now you have another option. We're simulcasting our programming overnight, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. on WSBC AM 1240 for a clearer reception in and around the city. Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. And now overnights on WSBC 1240 AM, where facts matter.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Evidently, Mike Johnson's not calling the House back, not going to do it. In his words, futile exercise. Because I don't know. I don't know why you take the entire month while the government's shut down to go on vacation, or whatever it is that they're doing back in their districts, because certainly not figuring out a way to help people. But President Trump, our dear leader, our unitary executive, our CEO, in the last minutes, he's found a way. He's found a way to pay the troops, even though they've taken money from places where it probably shouldn't have. But